Hello there, everybody. And for today, I'm going to be reviewing Abigail. So, this came out last year in April, and I wanted to see this in theaters, but I just didn't get around to seeing it. But I saw it on DVD and Blu ray, I'm pretty sure. I think it was actually Peacock, but I gotta say, this is definitely a fun, graphic horror movie. So it stars a bunch of famous people right now. It stars Melissa Barrera, Dan Stevens, William Chatton, Catherine Newton, Kevin Durant, and August Cloud, Giancarlo Esposito, and Asha Ruera as Abigail. So this is about a group of criminals who kidnap a little girl and hold her hostage for a large sum of money. But it turns out she's not what they think she was. And it turns out she is a vampire. I'm already getting straight into it. And it's up to all of them to survive against Abigail. So what really worked about this movie for me is how simple the concept was. You first think it's like just some criminal thriller or whatever, crime thriller, but and then becomes a straight up gore fest horror movie, and it has a bunch of cool actors that I love in this, like Melissa Barrera, for example. I think this is made by the same company who did Scream 5 and 6. But with Melissa Barrera, unfortunately, is not going to be in Scream 7, but she is in this movie. And she's clearly a standout for this movie. It makes me like the role she plays a lot more, for sure, even if it's not Scream. But the best part is her relationship with the little girl. They first, like, before she learns she's a vampire, she has this bond where she says, like, that she's gonna pinky promise that she'll protect her from the others, and well, she'll make sure she doesn't get hurt. But when she does become a vampire, they become enemies, but they kind of don't become enemies at the very end. But it's basically this movie kind of reminds me of Clue, if you know that movie, but it's like a vampire edition, where instead of people getting murdered to death and we don't know who it is, it's like a bunch of people get murdered by a vampire. But the standout cast is their dynamic. I think the first person to get killed is August Cloud's character. Sorry if I got his name wrong. I think he passed away before this movie came out, so rest in peace to August Cloud. But his character gets decapitated early in the movie, and it's quite graphic. I think he's killed by Abigail, I'm pretty sure, off screen. But I feel like the other standout role in this movie is probably Catherine Newton. I really like the role she plays in various horror movies. She was really good in Freaky and also in Paranormal Activity 4, and now she's in this movie. And she's kind of like sort of the mean one of the group. Like she's just tech savvy. Like she's just constantly on her phone. And she even gets it taken away by Giancarlo Esposito. I know these characters have names, but I'm just not good with names. But his character, he was shown a lot in the trailer. He was apparently the guy who just tells them what they're going to be doing throughout this whole movie. But when they do kidnap the little girl, they kidnap her after her ballerina lesson, because she's also a ballerina. That's the main theme throughout this whole movie. And they even go to the giant mansion, and they're basically locked in this entire building. But the main thing throughout this whole movie is that each of the characters die, except spoilers for Melissa Barrera. She's the only one that survives, and Abigail obviously survives as well. But each character is just an asshole throughout this whole movie, except for Melissa's character. But as each character dies, the movie just becomes more and more intense as things go on throughout this whole movie. One of the other characters in this movie is Dan Steven. He's the main asshole in this movie. He even threatens Abigail when he thinks that she saw his face. But he mainly is sort of the leader of the group. And I think this guy, he's the muscles of the group. I forget the character's name. Kevin Durant, his name is Peter. Yeah, he's basically the muscle of the group. And we also got Rickles. This guy, not much is shown about his character. I think he dies. He's the second one to die throughout this whole movie. But it's mainly about these characters trying to take down Abigail as she reveals herself to be a vampire. And the way they did her teeth as the vampire was quite terrifying. Like, you actually feel that she's a vampire. But the only way they can take her down is with some, like, shot that they used on her to knock her out. And apparently it might work again. So it basically just becomes like a goose chase throughout this whole mansion of trying to take her down. But that she does ambush Dan Steven, and Catherine Newton tries to stop her, but she ends up getting bitten by Abigail. And I do like the scene where they do catch her, and they put her in a cage, and Catherine Newton asks if she's going to become a vampire, and Abigail's just like, yeah, you'll probably turn into a vampire, and it causes her to freak out. But later in the movie, she does become a vampire, and it's quite grotesque. But she ends up biting. The next person that dies in this movie is him. He ends up getting bitten, and I thought he was going to become a vampire too, but no, he is just brutally murdered by Catherine Newton. And Abigail ends up even controlling her. We even get like a little small dance sequence. But later, it's the only two left is Dan Steven and Melissa Barrera, and the two end up meeting up with Giancarlo Esposito, and it's actually revealed that he is a vampire too, and her father is also Dracula, and he ends up biting Dan Steven, and he becomes a vampire. And the final battle in this movie is basically Melissa Barrera versus Dan Steven, and then Dan Steven basically becomes the villain. He ends up being extremely harsh towards Abigail, even earlier in the movie where they almost defeat her by hitting her with sunlight, and it almost chops her hand off, I'm pretty sure. But the final battle all takes place in the main balcony of the mansion, and it's quite intense. But it ends with Dan Steven getting staked to death, and he ends up just exploding all over the floor, all over Melissa Barrera, and she gets bitten too, but because of his death, her bitten it prevents her from becoming a vampire. And I even like the scene where Abigail gives Melissa the pinky, basically saying, like, promise to protect me. And the two are basically still buddies. And that's a very heartwarming scene. But when we do see Dracula in this movie, he kind of reminds me of Nosferatu. If you know who that is, I'm pretty sure you do. But the movie ends with Melissa Barrera, and she ends up having to go back to her family. She has a son named Caleb, but she didn't have much of a relationship with him because of her criminal ways. But she decides, after her little voicemail when she thought she was going to die, she ends up just going back to him and trying to basically fix her life a little. So the movie does end, and we even get a little tribute to August Cloud, which was nice. A little tribute to him. But that's Abigail, so I probably skipped some things. Sorry if I did, but Abigail was definitely a great movie for sure. Like, I liked how intense it was. I liked the cast. Yeah, the only issue I probably had with this movie is just it was kind of hard to get into some of the characters since, I don't know, it kind of took a bit to learn about their backstory. It kind of just takes a bit for me to get into newer characters in a movie. I'm more familiar with iconic characters in popular franchises. But Radio Silence did a great job with another horror banger. This is basically another Scream movie, but not really Scream since that's slasher, and this is a vampire movie. So, will we get Abigail 2? Probably not, but if we do, I'd be on board with it, since it'd be fun to learn more about the character of Abigail and the whole lore behind the vampires. The other vampire movie I saw was Renfield. I don't know if I'll review that one day, since that's another vampire movie that came out that I did not get a chance to review since I didn't see it. But, yeah, that's it for Abigail. I think my next review is Piece by Piece, the Lego movie. So that should be really fun to talk about. So, anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.